Good evening, y'all. I'm Granny Ghost Hunter, and welcome to Granny's Scary Bedtime Stories. So, Granny wants you to get all comfy and tucked in tight and get ready for Granny to scare you to sleep. Now, if y'all are ready, let's begin. This one's called Satan Offered Me a Job. Part 1. I'm sorry. Did you say Satan? The young man standing on my porch nodded eagerly. Yes, sir, he said. We have come to spread the message of our Lord and Savior Satan. I looked from him to his companion. Both were dressed in ill-fitting white button-down shirts and black slacks, with gelled-up side-part haircuts and slightly manic smiles. Okay, I said. Well, I'm not really into the Lord and Savior thing, so I think I'm going to have to pass. I closed the door only to find the young man's foot obstructing it. I opened it back up inside. Just a moment of your time, sir, the young man said. Perhaps a look at our literature could convince you. The other young man lifted up his suitcase and popped open the latches. When I saw what was inside, my heart nearly jumped out of my chest. Is that real? I asked. Oh, yes, sir, the first man said. Go ahead and take a closer look. I slowly reached out and picked up one of the bundles and inspected it. I'm no expert, but it certainly looked like a real stack of $100 bills to me. I looked from the money to the creepy but overall harmless-looking young men, and I waved them inside. We sat down around my coffee table, and there was a moment of awkward silence. So, I began clearing my throat. My name's David, and you two are? Oh, forgive my rudeness, sir, the first young man replied. I'm Acolyte Paul, and this is Acolyte Stephen. Well, would you like anything to drink? Oh, no, sir. We do not require sustenance as mortals do, said Paul. Right, I said. I picked up my half-finished beer from the night before and took a swig. The two young men just sat in silence, grinning at me as I drank. I coughed a little bit and ended the beer and wiped the foam from my lips. You said you came to spread a message, right? I asked. So what's the message? We're really glad you asked, said Paul. Satan is recruiting for skilled labor positions in hell. We've identified you as a top candidate. Congratulations, sir. This is fantastic news for you. My eyes wandered to the suitcase full of money. And, what does this job consist of? I asked. Asking all the right questions, Paul replied. You're a sharp guy, David. The details are all laid out in this contract here. Stephen produced a single piece of paper from somewhere I couldn't see and laid it on the coffee table. I picked up the paper and stared at it. This is a contract, I asked. Oh, yes, sir, said Paul. What language is this? It's written in Old Enochian, sir, the language of angels. I set the contract back down on the table. Well, what's it say? I asked. I'm sorry, sir, said Paul. I can't read Old Enochian. You were just instructed by our superior to deliver the contract along with your signing bonus. Signing bonus? I asked. Stephen popped open the latches to the suitcase once again. So you're telling me, I said, setting down my beer, that if I sign that piece of paper, you're just going to give me a suitcase full of money? Yes, sir, that's the deal, Paul said enthusiastically. I took another swig of beer. Got a pen? I asked. Paul handed me the pen, and I scribbled my name messily on the bottom of the paper, which Stephen promptly snatched up and stowed away somewhere I didn't see. Wow, that's great, said Paul. I guess we better go now. All right, I said. I'll see you later. Very funny, sir, said Paul. Of course, I meant we three had better go. What do you mean by... My voice was cut off by a roaring sound as the three of us fell through the floor. Hot air rushed past us as we fell towards a distant red glow below us. Paul and Stephen's faces remained frozen in their manic grins as their ties flapped up and whipped around their faces. It fell hard on the glowing red dirt below, sending up a cloud of dust around us. When the dust cleared, I found myself in a strange cross between a cave and an office, facing a large obsidian desk behind which sat a high-backed leather chair. The chair slowly swung around to reveal a smiling red demon in a suit. "Hi, David," he said. "I'm Satan. Now let's talk about that job." Part 2. "What in God's name is going on here?" I sputtered. Satan arched one of his thin black eyebrows. "In whose name?" he said. "I just meant," I began, before Satan cut me off with a good-natured laughter. "I'm only joking," Satan said. "But boy, do you ever know not how to read a room, Jerry? You're gonna have to work on that if you're gonna succeed down here in hell." "But my name's David," I asked. Satan opened a manila file, a folder on his desk, and slipped on a pair of pince-nez reading spectacles. He scanned the folder for a minute before looking back up at me. "Are you not Jerry Smith? Satanic cult leader and master of unholy magic?" he asked. No. I'm an accountant," I replied. Satan scratched at his goatee. "Well, that's not good at all," he said. "Do you at least have a bachelor's degree in unholy magic?" "No," I said. Is that a thing that even exists?" "Of course it is," said Satan. "We have an online program at the University of Phoenix." "Oh," I said. "But isn't that place kind of a scam?" he said. "Why? Because they lure naive young people in with the promise of a better future and then bilk them out of thousands of dollars, all in exchange for a degree not worth the paper it's printed on?" Yeah, I said. That was the reason I was thinking of." Jerry, said Satan, shaking his head. "My name's actually—" "I know that to the less enlightened, that may seem like a scam," he went on. "But here in hell, we call that a masterclass in practical business ethics. Plus, due to some clever legal maneuvering, we have the implicit right to employ 20% of their graduates after death." Okay then." Satan sighed and closed the folder before slipping off his spectacles and sitting them down gently on the desk. "Well," he said, I can tell that you're probably not going to be a good fit here, but seeing that you've already signed the contract and there's some pretty steep penalties for breach, you're just going to have to do your best." He redirected his attention to the corner of the room where Paul and Stefan stood, still sporting their manic Cheshire cat grins. "And as for you two," he said, "change out of those human suits. You're giving me the creeps." "Yes, sir, right away," said Paul. There was a wet tearing noise, and Paul and Stefan's faces split down the middle as two gargantuan insect-like heads sprouted out from their necks. The rest of the skin slid off onto the floor like a pile of discarded clothes. Satan shook his head as he regarded the two now stark naked demons standing in his office. "Don't you guys wear clothes under those suits?" he asked. "Sorry, Mr. Satan, sir," said Paul. It's really hot with clothes on underneath." "You do realize that we're currently in hell, right?" said Satan. "You guys should be used to the heat by now." "Yes, Mr. Satan, sir," said Paul. Satan sighed and pressed a little red button on his phone handset. "Tina," he said. "Yes, Mr. Satan," came a tired-sounding female voice. "Can you please send Frisnall to escort acolytes Paul and Stefan to the pain monster down in HR?" "Yes, Mr. Satan." The door to the office opened and a giant blue-skinned demon with a hatchet embedded in the back of his skull entered. He slung the two acolytes over his shoulder and carried them screaming out of the office. "I should have fired those two a long time ago," said Satan, shaking his head. "But they're my wife's nephews. What can I do?" I don't know," I replied. As Satan skinned the manila file folder on his desk, I had two suits of human skin in the corner of the office, wondering if they had used to be filled with humans instead of demons. My thoughts were soon interrupted by Satan clearing his throat. "Well, no sense in wasting time," he said. "Let's get down to brass tacks. I assume you're familiar with Wozniak's law of eternal soul entropy and hyperinflation. Wozniak's what? I asked. Satan sighed and scribbled a note in the folder. Well, at the very least, you should be acquainted with Baal's index of human evil and the correct way to measure a soul's value of micro-Hitlers, he said. I shook my head. Sorry, no, I said. Satan frowned and scribbled another note inside the folder. Then he shut it and tossed it in the fireplace in the back of the office. The fire flashed bright purple for a moment, and the file was gone. That's all right, he said with an easy smile. It's all relatively straightforward. I'm sure you'll pick it up in no time. In the meantime, though, I'm going to assign you to a training officer to help you learn the ropes and monitor your progress. Satan pressed a button on his phone headset. Tina, he said. Yes, Mr. Satan, the tired-sounding female voice replied. Can you send in Frank and Teddy? Yes, Mr. Satan, replied the voice. Satan released the button, and a moment later the office door burst off the hinges and an enormous demonic teddy bear lumbered into the office. His fur was gray and spotted with what looked suspiciously like old blood stains, and one of his eyes glowed red like burning coal. When he spoke, it was a deep, resounding baritone that was so loud that it chattered my teeth. Yes, Lord Satan, he boomed. Hello, Frank and Teddy, said Satan. This here is Jerry Smith, master of the Satanic Accountant. I need you to show him the ropes on the new project they're running in our Daryl's department. Do you think you can do that for me now? I shall complete my task, or die in the course of its glorious undertaking, Frank and Teddy said. Then turning his attention to me, he said, Come, human, we have work to do. Yet when I tried to stand, I found my legs to be strangely uncooperative. My stomach was squirming, and the demon's ember eye felt like it was burning a hole in me from across the room. Satan? I asked. Yes, Jerry? You don't, have any, human training officers, do you? Why, you some kind of racist or something, said Satan. No, I mean, teddy bear is even technically a race? I am a commander in Satan's demonic legion, boomed Frank and Teddy. Not a teddy bear. Really insensitive, Jerry, said Satan, shaking his head. Besides, you've got no need to worry. Frank and Teddy is one of our finest training officers, and he's only authorized to use lethal force in extreme circumstances. Oh, I said, that's comforting. Come, tiny human, boomed Frank and Teddy. He motioned for me to follow him out of the office, and I did so. When we got into the hallway, he said, It is time for your first and most important lesson, human. In the everlasting kingdom of hell, all circumstances qualify as extreme. I felt my knees weaken a little bit. I opened my mouth to reply, but all that came out was a slight gasping sound. The hallway that Frank and Teddy and I walked along was filled with closed doors. Screams emanating from the rooms behind them. I felt a deep sense of dread beginning to bubble in my stomach. I hope that I'm still alive in a few days' time. Part 3. Frank and Teddy ushered me into Daryl's department, a dim little office lit by flickering fluorescent lights. The new satanic thrall has arrived, announced Frank and Teddy. Daryl walked up and eyed me up and down. He was a short and bespectacled reptilian demon with a large pot belly that strained the buttons of his shirt. He looked over his spectacles at me with the lack of slight discernment. Jerry Smith, master of satanic magic, he said. There has been a mix-up, Frank and Teddy said. This is David Robbins, master of satanic accounting. Just accounting, I said. Dale crossed his arms and wrinkled up the leathery skin of his face. What am I supposed to do with a regular Earth accountant? He asked. This is no good. Tell Satan to send him back up. We can't send him back, he replied. He's already signed the contract. Daryl sighed and rubbed his forehead. He turned around and beckoned over his shoulder at me. Come on this way. I'll show you to your desk. He led us to a small but hefty-looking metal desk with a leg manacle attached to the bottom. Don't worry, Daryl said when he caught me eyeing it. We don't use the chains anymore. New labor regulations and all that. That's great, I said faintly. So, I assume you know what you'll be doing here then, he asked. The contract would have been very detailed. Well, it was written in Old Enochian, I said. Daryl peered over the top of his glasses again. You mean to tell me that you can't read Old Enochian? He asked. Yes, that's right. Daryl pulled off his spectacles and rubbed his eyes. And yet, Satan still refuses to let the department heads interview new candidates, he said despondently. Well, I hate to break it to you, but it's nothing exciting. In this department, we basically serve as middlemen. We deal with the buying and the selling of souls. Who would buy a human soul, I asked. Well, various cosmic entities. What do they do with them? I asked. Daryl shrugged. We don't really deal with that in this department, he said. I always thought hell was the final destination for damned souls. I had no idea that it was actually just full of middlemen. First off, Daryl said, even if hell was a final destination for souls, it would still be filled with middlemen. Secondly, hell is a multi-dimensional corporation. We don't just trade in souls. We have parts of all kinds of business. We just closed a big endorsement deal with an A-list movie star for one of our reverse mortgage companies. Really? I said. You managed to get a movie star to sign a deal with Satan. How'd you do that? Oh, it was easy, Daryl said, waving his hand dismissively. We own 90% of all the souls in Hollywood. Oh, I said. Don't worry, Daryl said. It takes a little moral flexibility at first, but I'm sure that you'll get used to it. And all things considered, it's not a bad place to work. We've got an excellent medical plan, for instance. Really? Oh, sure, said Daryl. Just let our medical department know if any part of your body is bothering you, and they'll remove it. Almost totally free of charge. If you want anesthesia, you'll have to pay for it yourself, though. Just then, there was a terrible, blood-curdling scream from down the hall. What was that? I said. Oh, said Daryl. Jeremy from Human Resources had a hangnail, and the medical department opted to amputate his foot. Better safe than sorry, you know. If Jeremy doesn't have a foot, he can't have any more expensive medical problems. I looked down at my feet and thought about my own hangnail, and my stomach gave a sickening lurch. I would like to opt out of the medical plan, I said. I need all my body parts to live. Really? Said Daryl, raising his eyebrows. If that's the case, I'd stay away from the office shredder. It's terribly aggressive. I had the large metal paper shredder in the corner, the top of which was totally covered in fresh blood, and silently vowed never to go into that section of the office. What do you mean aggressive? I said. Just then, a small, amphibious demon staring at a folded walk right by the shredder was promptly vaulted by a spring-loaded floor panel directly into the machine's mouth. There was a sick, wet, grinding noise as blood sprayed all over the ceiling. Damn it, Daryl said. I keep telling the interns to not go near it, but they always forget. We'll have to get a new batch from the local community college soon. My heart began to pound wildly in my chest, and bile rose in my stomach as I fought the urge to vomit. Are you all right? Asked Daryl. You look a little green. I'm fine, I croaked out. Are you sure? He asked. Maybe you need to go to the medical department. No, I screamed. I'm fine. I'm just not sure I'm too comfortable with selling human souls. It's just business, David, he said. You know what that means, right? Yes, well, Frankenteddy is your training officer. I'll let him explain it to you. It's just business. is what you say when you want to do something terrible and not feel bad about it afterwards, boomed Frank and Teddy. What? Said Daryl. No, that's not right at all. Frank and Teddy shrugged. That's what Satan told me, he said. Y'all are going to give me an aneurysm, said Daryl. Look, at the very least, I'm sure you know we have a new project in the pipeline. It's the entire reason Satan hired you, after all. Yes, I said. He mentioned something about that. Well, this is top secret, he said. He peered over his spectacles at Frank and Teddy. That means you need to leave, he said. I have the highest security clearance in hell, he protested Frank and Teddy. Yes, said Daryl. You also have a big mouth and a head full of stuffing. Now get out of it and let Dave and I get on it. Fine, said Frank and Teddy. I didn't want to know anyway. Frank and Teddy stomped out of the office and slammed the door behind him. So can we talk about the secret project now? Daryl held up a hand to silence me. He picked up a sealed ream of paper from the desk and hurled it at the door. Ow! Came Frank and Teddy. His muffled voice from behind the door was quickly followed by the heavy sound of retreating footsteps. Now we can talk, said Daryl. So you're an accountant, right? I assume you know how supply and demand works. Yes, vaguely at least. Good, said Daryl. Because as the middleman in exchange of souls between worlds, our profit margins are totally dependent on controlling the flow of souls. You see, hell used to have a monopoly on selling souls to other dimensions. But lately, new competitors have sprouted up in the form of new religions. Combined with the global population increase, souls are being devalued. At the same time, we're losing control of the market. Oh, okay, I said. You see, our investment in Hollywood has proved particularly lucrative and allowed us to clinch high-value celebrity endorsement deals for pennies on the dollar. Using the cultural hub of America as our personal advertising agency also allows us to secure souls from all over the country. So our top priority is securing that market from the new fad religion that's stealing celebrity souls from us. Hold on, I said. Are you talking about Scientology? Shh, said Daryl, looking around the room with a clear expression of paranoia. Never say the S word around here. Are you trying to get sued? In our department, we use a code word. From here on out, you're to refer to our work as BS, which is obviously short for beating, well, you know, the S. Right, I said. So how are we going to beat them? With clubs, eventually, said Daryl. But that comes later, after the economic ruin. After all, you can't get away with beating rich people to death in the street now, can you? No, I said. I guess not. Good, said Daryl. So we're on the same page. Now let's get started. He beckoned me to an old wooden door in the back of the office. There was a brown plastic plaque on the side of the room that read, Disintegration Room. Daryl pushed the door open to darkness beyond, but I stood rooted to the ground, unable to force my legs to move. He turned around and raised his eyebrows. Aren't you coming? He asked. I could feel the bile rising in my stomach again. Daryl? I asked. What's the disintegration room? Ah, replied Daryl. That's the basis of our whole plan. Part 4. All right, said Daryl, hand on the knob. Are you ready to have your mind blown? No, I said, not really. That's the spirit, he said, pushing the door open. When I saw what was inside, my mind was more muddled than blown. There was a crowd of about 20 normal people in business suits, casually milling around and not doing much of anything. Daryl let out a long, contented sigh. They're magnificent, aren't they? He said. That depends, I said. What are they? Daryl turned to me, and for the first time since I met him, he was smiling, a mischievous gleam in his eye. What do you think they are? He asked. I don't know, I said. They just look like regular people to me. Ha! Shouted Daryl, smacking his knee with his clipboard. Exactly. They look like regular people. Well, what are they then? I asked. Daryl waved the two of us inside and walked us around the room. Once I got a closer look at the people milling around, I realized there was something slightly off about the lot of them. Their eyes were all just a bit too wide, and they all wore broad smiles for no perceivable reason. One of my more brilliant ideas, said Daryl. As you probably know, celebrity souls go for 3 times the price as regular ones. They do? I asked. Of course, said Daryl. Something clicked and I said, oh, I think I get it. You're going to take these people and turn them into pseudo-celebrities. Wow, that idea's not half bad, he said, scribbling a note on his file, then clearing his throat as he went on. But these guys are for something else, he said. I've already explained the basics of Project BS, as you know, so I'll go ahead and move on to the particulars. Oh, okay, I said. What we do with these guys is use them to infiltrate. See, they all may look like normal humans, but they're actually just demons in human skin suits. They're down here practicing how to be human. After that, we swap out the top-level cult leaders for demonic clones. But why is it called the Disintegration Room? I asked. An ugly smile of impish pleasure distorted Daryl's features. Because of this, he said. He turned around and grabbed a red-handled lever on the wall behind him, yanking it downwards. There was a loud squish, and I winced as flecks of blood landed on my face. Half the people in the room had been reduced to chunky puddles. Why'd you do that? I asked, trying to wipe the blood off my face, but only managing to smear it. Those were the real ones, Daryl said. We bring them down here and tell them it's top secret, you-know-what compound. That they're involved in something special, and that if they help us, they'll be rewarded in paradise or Valhalla or whatever heaven it is that their little crackpot religion professes. I think science, they believe in reincarnation. Well, this is more like de-incarnation, said Daryl, and he laughed thrillingly at his own pun. Right, I said. So, as an accountant, what exactly is supposed to be my role in all this? Daryl frowned and scratched his wobbly chin. Well, he said, what we really need was a master in satanic accounting to keep track of the boring paperwork. But since you're not qualified for that, we'll have to find another place for you. Are you any good at making coffee? No. You're not by any chance certified to give shiatsu massages? What? No. Well, that really only leaves one position available then. We need someone, a real human, to take over as the head of a cult. Religion? Whatever you want to call it. Would you be comfortable wearing a human skin suit to work? Not even a little, I said. Well, I'm afraid it's either that or eternal detonation for breach of contract. Great, Daryl said, and his broad grin stretching across his fat lips and wobbly chin. We'll send you back up to Earth to secure the package then. You'll need to bring this. He rummaged in his pockets and pulled out a gun that looked like something out of a science fiction movie. What the hell does this thing do? But Daryl was already checking his watch, an ostentatious Rolex with a tight leather band that dug into the fat of his wrist, and must have misheard the question. Just point and shoot, he said absentmindedly. Ah, here it is. He pressed a button on the side of his watch, and my stomach lurched as the world disappeared into a sudden darkness. I was hurtling through the dark, cool air roaring by my ears as my body rocketed upwards. Suddenly, I found myself face down on the floor of my living room, a thin trickle of drool leaking out of the corner of my mouth. My head was spinning as I pushed myself into a sitting position. My wobbly gaze was met by the wide plastic grins of acolytes Paul and Stefan. Good to see you in tip-top shape, sir, said acolyte Paul. We'd better get to work. And that, my friends, is a story of Satan offered me a job. So I hope y'all enjoyed our little fun times with Granny's bedtime stories. And once again, Granny's wishing you a wonderful night. So remember, night-night, sleep tight, and don't let the vampires bite. Good night, y'all.